What's up guys, welcome back. This is Anime Fiction. You'll be watching What If Naruto Became Goku's Brother Part 1. Now, let's begin. Shino Academy. Toshiro Hitsugaya and Momo Hinamori. You are preparing to undertake the early graduation assessment. Which division would you like to assess? The first division. The fourth no, the Kido Corps. Momo and Toshiro responded while positioned in an office, facing four Shinigami. Toshiro, positioned beside Momo, was not taken aback by her ultimate decision. Approximately 8 months have passed since Naruto's graduation. Toshiro had the opportunity to graduate 2 or 3 months prior, but he chose to postpone his graduation to support Momo following her awakening of the Zanpakuto. He would admit that his greatest desire was to join the 4th division. However, he had no inclination towards healing. Furthermore, prior to graduation, Naruto explicitly instructed them not to accompany him to the 4th division. He was proceeding there for a particular purpose, and their participation would not yield any valuable insights. Toshiro had been quite uncertain about which division to join, until he received an invitation from the 1st division. He was assured a seated position contingent upon achieving sufficiently high marks upon graduation. The absence of specific connections with the other divisions made the decision quite clear. If your decisions are final, it is time to proceed. Momo acknowledged with a nod and a soft murmur before proceeding to walk away. Wishing you the best, Shiro-chan. Since the day Momo encountered Naruto, her training and perspective underwent a significant transformation. With the knowledge that Toshiro had successfully awakened his Shurkai, her resolve to graduate early intensified. As a result, she successfully established a connection with her Zanpakuto and activated Shurkai. Despite this, Momo recognized that her foundational skills were insufficient for graduation except for Kido, of course. Naruto had informed her that she possessed exceptional talent in the art of Kido, and she accepted his assessment with confidence. Nanao had shown interest in her development and occasionally provided assistance by teaching various Kido techniques and strategies for effective Kido handling. All those elements combined to instill in her the confidence to apply for the Kido Corps. I will strive for excellence. With determination, she clenched her fist, nodded to herself, and proceeded to her exams. Siriitii, Shihoin family. The captain of the 4th division intends to establish a collaborative exercise program with our team. A young man with tanned skin and a somewhat androgynous appearance sat on a throne, his voice reflecting a sense of confusion. What is your opinion? Wani-san. Please. Yashiro-sama. I have previously requested that you refrain from addressing me in such a familiar manner during official settings. Soifan, the captain of the 2nd division, was positioned on one knee before him. The Shihoin family was recognized as one of the 4 prominent families within the Soul Society. Additionally, they maintained complete authority over the covert unit. The Fan family demonstrated unwavering loyalty and support for the Shihoin family. All members of the Fan family were required to be part of the secret forces, and failure to comply resulted in immediate exile from the family. It is generally understood that Soifan was not the most likely candidate for the position of captain of the 2nd division. However, given that the current leader of the Shihoin family, Yashiro Shihoin, was still somewhat inexperienced, she was elected to assume control. Yashiro and Soifan served as the supreme commanders of the secret forces, which necessitated that she consult him before making significant decisions. This was, once again, a temporary measure until Yashiro was adequately prepared. There may be speculation regarding whether she harbored any resentment. In truth, she was. Not due to a fear of losing her power, but rather because she had no desire to assume the role of commander in the first place. She felt content when her responsibilities were limited to following directives while supporting Yoruchi. Indeed, those moments represented the pinnacle of her happiness. The betrayal by Yoruchi was particularly painful for her. Am I reflecting on my sister once more? I sincerely apologize. Please refrain from doing so. I am fully aware of your loyalty to her. I also miss her greatly. However, it is of no consequence. I am confident that she will return in due time. My sister is not disloyal. This final statement was delivered with a radiant smile. Similar to Soifan, Yashiro exhibited a profound respect for Yoruchi. She was his role model and exemplified the qualities of an ideal leader in his perspective. Soifan was unaware, and indeed, no one possessed that knowledge. He was certainly not lacking in strength. He was confident in his ability to compete with most captains on equal footing. However, he did not intend to assume his sister's role. That concludes the matter. Returning to the previous matter. Yashiro-sama, I am confident that we have no grounds for refusal. While we successfully established our own healers, it is important to acknowledge that they do not possess the expertise of the 4th Division members. Skilled practitioners would undoubtedly reduce the mortality rate. If you believe it is satisfactory. It is satisfactory. Yashiro-sama. Hee. I am serious. I appointed you as Supreme Commander and granted you authority that is equal to my own. You are free to pursue what you consider to be the most effective course of action. I have confidence in your abilities. I graciously acknowledge your compliments. Expressing a moment of exasperation. I have confidence in your abilities, but I find your demeanor to be quite rigid. That will suffice for the time being. I will entrust the remainder to you. Acknowledged. She stood up and saluted with a nod. I will now take my leave. Goodbye. I would appreciate a visit from you for purposes beyond professional obligations. This location lacks excitement. I will. Upon exiting, Soifan narrowed her eyes slightly as the sunlight streamed into her vision. Soifan reflected on Yashiro's speech about Yoruchi, a bitter chuckle escaping her lips. She had never been concerned about the authenticity of Yoruki's alleged betrayal. The most painful aspect for her was that Yoruchi departed without her. If it were for Yoruchi, she would willingly forsake the Soul Society. Siriitii, 5th Division. In the subterranean area of the 5th Division, a man with silver hair, Jin Ichimaru, stood observing his captain positioned before a large tube containing a green liquid. A life form resembling a fetus appeared to develop gradually within the tube. Oh, Jin. I would appreciate your feedback on my latest creation. Jin, squinting his eyes, found it challenging to respond to this question. Is this a new variant of Hollow? Certainly. I am conducting a small experiment that piques my interest. I am curious about the potential outcomes of a complete fusion between a Hollow and a Shinigami. Regrettably, I have not succeeded, at least, up to this point. Jin refrained from inquiring about the number of Shinigami sacrificed for this experiment. He had long ceased to keep track. What are its capabilities? After adjusting his glasses, Eisen contemplated briefly before responding. I must admit, I do not have an answer. In theory, it has the potential to fully merge with the Shinigami and harness all of its power. However, I have reservations about the capability of this one to achieve that. We will assess the situation in a few years when it is prepared. Jin acknowledged with a nod. He recognized clearly that this was merely a means for Eisen to occupy his time. A spontaneous decision. Which division will be the focus this time? Eisen remarked with a chuckle, you present us as if we are the antagonists. Let's proceed with the 13th. I have consistently been curious about the capabilities of that individual. It is unfortunate that he frequently experiences illness. Acknowledged. Eisen turned around, retrieved a notepad, and commenced writing using a unique code he had developed himself. What was documented is as follows: Project Metastasia. Arthur's note for Yashiro: individuals who solely engage with anime may not be familiar with him. However, he is canon. Ultimately, Toshiro's lack of assistance from Ranjaku and Momo's absence in her encounter with Eisen have led to distinctly divergent futures for them. West Rakongai. Please engage in dance. Sodi no Shirayuki. In a clearing surrounded by lush greenery, a girl with black hair quietly spoke while gripping her sword. Upon the completion of her incantation, the standard katana she held transformed into an exquisitely crafted white sword. From the blade to the hilt, a long white ribbon is affixed to the hilt. A sudden gust of cold air accompanied the transformation of her sword. Oh! Each time I observe your sword, it brings me great joy. It is recognized as the most beautiful sword in the Soul Society for a reason. Rukia felt a slight flush at the compliment from the tall man in the Shinigami attire standing before her. Let us move on from this topic. I am uncertain about the origin of that nickname. Laughter. Rukia is exhibiting some shyness. It appears that it is now my opportunity. Drawing his sword, he commenced to twirl it with precision and softly spoke, navigate the oceans and skies with determination. Nichibana. The sword was enveloped in light as it started to extend and transform. Upon completion of the transformation, he held a trident featuring a pointed end. Simultaneously, water materialized unexpectedly and started to envelop him. I must acknowledge that your sword is indeed the adversary of mine. Regardless of this, you remain unable to surpass me. Put in more effort, Rukia. Rukia remained unbothered by those remarks. Ultimately, they were indeed accurate. The individual before her, Kaien Shiba, the vice-captain of the 13th Division, held the dual roles of her closest companion and her guide. His support was instrumental in alleviating her ostracism within the division due to her status. Simultaneously, he was an exceptional individual who completed his studies at the academy in merely 2 years. In the meantime, her early graduation was solely attributed to her brother's support. Sigh. You are once again displaying this expression. Kaien ran his fingers through his hair in exasperation before wielding his trident with the precision of a baseball bat swing. Subsequent to that action, water surged powerfully and advanced toward Rukia. Regaining her focus, she stepped back and swiftly struck the ground 4 times in front of her. Subsequently, next dance, Hakurin, 1. From the tip of her sword, a torrent of snow was unleashed, surging towards Kaien's assault. This marked the commencement of yet another training session. 2 hours later, Rukia rested on the ground, her face glistening with perspiration. Meanwhile, Kaien displayed a calm demeanor as he transformed his trident back into a straightforward sword. Is it completed now? Please join us for a taste. A calm voice resonated as a woman with black hair and a welcoming smile entered the room. Oh! Miyako, dear. What do you have for us today? With a cheerful expression, Kaien utilized Shuinpa to approach her and embraced her warmly. Miyako accepted the hug without resistance before gently separating. I have prepared some straightforward yet nutritious meals. She opened the basket she was holding and displayed the food inside. It was not particularly unusual. Rice, fish, meat, and a selection of dessert. The sole issue was that they all resembled peculiar rabbits. Kaien chuckled, while Rukia blushed. It appears you have considered Rukia's unique preferences. Greetings. Rabbits possess an appealing charm. I find that quite amusing. The 3 engaged in light-hearted conversation and laughter while dining. Observing both Miyako and Kaien in this manner, Rukia experienced a sense of warmth in her heart. If Kaien was her mentor, then Miyako Shiba, Kaien's wife and the 3rd seat of the 13th Division, was her role model. She aspired to possess the same composure and presence one day. 5 years had passed since she graduated and became a member of the 13th Division. Despite the challenges faced, she was undeniably quite content. Upon reflection, Kira and Renji are nearing their graduation. Time passed remarkably quickly. She was aware that among their small circle, both Momo and Toshiro had successfully completed their graduation. The same applied to Naruto. Since her graduation, she has maintained minimal contact with Renji. Their relationship exhibited an uncomfortable sense of awkwardness that she found unappealing. At the same time, she was in closer proximity to Momo and Nanao. Although she encountered them only a few times each month. Ultimately, both individuals had significant commitments. In relation to that, your friend appears to have had another altercation with the 12th Division. Upon hearing this, Rukia experienced a moment of discomfort. Naruto Namikaze, a name that has been associated with challenges for quite some time now. The journey commenced approximately 5 years ago when he engaged in a battle against the vice-captain of the 11th Division and emerged victorious. Although there were no witnesses to the altercation, the damage in the vicinity led individuals to infer the extent of its perilous nature. 1 year later, during a mission on Earth, he employed his shuriken while confronting 3 Jillians and successfully purified them without sustaining any injuries. This marked the beginning of his notoriety, or his acclaim. The 12th Division expressed a keen interest in his shuriken, which exhibited Quincy-like power, and suggested that Naruto allow himself to be studied, an offer he, naturally, declined. The captain of the 11th Division, Zaraki Kenpachi, engaged in combat with him. Although the outcome remained uncertain, their battle in the Siriiti caused significant damage, affecting approximately a quarter of the 11th Division's territory. The captain of the 8th Division expressed interest in him, stating that he was monitoring Naruto to determine if he was suitable for his vice-captain, Nanao. Kanami Tozen, the captain of the 9th Division, along with Sajin Komamura, the captain of the 7th Division, determined that he was unfit for service and should be removed from the Godai 13. Captain Jushiro Yukitake expressed a favorable opinion of Naruto Namikaze, engaging in discussions about unconventional ideas such as forming the Silver Gang alongside Naruto, the 4th seat of the 1st Division, Toshiro Hitsugaya, and the vice-captain of the 5th, Jin Ichimaru. In addition to the existing challenges, numerous rumors circulated regarding his relationships with various women in the Godai 13. These included speculations involving the captain of the 4th Division, Retsu Anohana, the captain of the 2nd Division, Soi Fan, and the vice-captain of the 10th Division, Ranjiku Matsumoto. However, none of those rumors have been substantiated. Whenever he encountered her brother, Byakuya Kuchiki, the vice-captain of the 6th Division, it appeared that both were poised to unsheath their swords against one another. Based on her understanding, due to the rivalry with her brother, certain women with troubling thoughts started to envision various scenarios of inappropriate affection between them. The phenomenon reached a point where several mangas were created, gaining significant popularity among women. She possessed several samples of it in her bedroom, although it was solely for research purposes. Kaien counted on his fingers and quietly remarked, the 2nd, 4th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. Your friend has effectively engaged with all the divisions of the Soul Society. Rukia acknowledged Naruto's penchant for trouble, a characteristic she had recognized since their academy days. What was the reason for his dispute with the 12th Division on this occasion? Miyako responded, it appears that he indicated a willingness to cooperate if Captain Mayuri were to provide Vice-Captain Nemu to him. They were on the verge of a physical altercation but were intervened before it escalated. The three of them exchanged bewildered glances. Simultaneously, Rukia experienced a profound sense of respect for him. Ultimately, not everyone is capable of behaving in such a problematic manner. It was essential to possess the authority to support your decisions. It has come to my attention that he is poised to announce his candidacy for the role of captain of the 3rd Division. I was under the impression that this position was designated for Vice-Captain Ichimaru. Typically, the captains of both the 6th and 3rd Divisions are nearing retirement. Vice-Captain Byakuya is set to be promoted to the 6th Division. Captain Eisen has nominated Ichimaru for the position of Vice-Captain. Kaien remarked with a chuckle, it seems we need to include the 5th and 3rd Divisions in the extensive list of individuals he has interacted with. Does this imply that he interfered with all divisions of the Godai 13? Next dance White Wave. Arthur's note in Bleach, Rukia learns Shirkai from Kaien approximately 3 to 5 years after her graduation. Given that this occurred 50 years prior to her meeting Ichigo, it indicates that she possessed Shirkai for a duration of 50 years. Additionally, she possesses expertise in Kido. Despite this, she came close to death due to a particularly feeble hollow in Episode 1. Numerous potential factors exist. Firstly, she intervened to assist Ichigo, who acted impulsively by confronting an adversary beyond his capabilities. 2. She experienced significant distress due to the impending event in canon and had not engaged in training for 50 years. 3. And it is indeed the most probable outcome. Kubo did not originate the concept of Shirkai in Chapter 1 of the manga. The initial Shirkai was presented in Chapter 54 featuring Renji. It has been approximately 1 year and 2 weeks since the release of the first chapter of Bleach. Additionally, it is noteworthy that Rukia was originally intended to be the main character of Bleach. Naruto Uzumaki. It is time to rise. Upon awakening, with his vision still clouded by sleep, Naruto took in his environment before recalling his location. He turned around, leaping from the tree that had served as his makeshift bed, and offered a smile to the silver-haired woman standing before him. Hello, Aizen. What brings you here on this lovely morning? It is the afternoon. Naruto seamlessly continued, what brings you here on such a beautiful afternoon? With a resigned sigh, Aizen acknowledged that she could not distance herself from Naruto and chose to address the important matters at hand. Captain Anohana is requesting your presence. She requests that you deliver the prescribed medication for Captain Yukitake to the 13th Division. Pardon. Naruto expressed his discontent, as he found interactions with the captain of the 13th Division to be unfavorable. Despite the man's outward appearance as a kind and gentle elder, Naruto sensed a cold and devious undertone within him. However, This was not the issue, considering he was not without his own faults. What troubled him was the immense power concealed within the lungs of that individual. It seemed as though an entirely different existence resided within those lungs. A presence so vast that Naruto found it challenging to articulate. Based on Naruto's observations, it appeared that Jushiro Yukitake should have passed away a considerable time ago. His illness was expected to take his life a few years after it first appeared. However, he remained alive. Unwell, yet still persevering. This indicated that whatever resided in his lungs was sustaining his life. Sigh. I believe it would be beneficial to pay a visit to Rukia. I would appreciate it if she could contact her brother on my behalf. After stretching, he quietly indicated for Aizen to proceed ahead. Excuse me. What topics would you like to discuss with Captain Kachiki? Is it really another conflict? Amusing. Do you believe I fit that description? Indeed, you are. My Aizen understands me exceptionally well. I am deeply moved. Please adopt a more serious demeanor. Understood, understood. I will not engage in a conflict with him. I will discuss business matters. Are we discussing business? There is a book currently in circulation that narrates a story involving a relationship between him and me. Aizen flushed and started to falter. What do you mean? How could an individual purchase such a questionable book? Naruto regarded her with a subtle smile for a brief moment, remaining silent. Ultimately, Aizen had no choice but to concede. I purchased one, understood. However, only one. The total was 3. Frustration. I acknowledge that I fully believed the entire narrative. Are you satisfied? Aizen's face was flushed to the point that steam appeared to rise above her head. Naruto stroked her head and remarked softly, There, it wasn't difficult, was it? Despite Naruto being only a few centimeters taller than her, the scene appeared entirely natural. I find this situation quite frustrating. Amusing. Little Aizen exhibits an undeniable charm. Aizen felt a flush of embarrassment and gently pushed his hand away, stating, You are the only person who would refer to me as little. Naruto was aware that Aizen had a peculiar concern regarding her height. He lacked a clear understanding of the situation and showed little concern for it as well. Your height does not hold significance for me. Naruto understood that if he desired, he could manipulate Aizen with ease. She possessed numerous insecurities that anyone with kindness and patience could have easily exploited. Unfortunately, despite his genuine interest in her, he did not seek to establish a lasting relationship. If he were to ever break Aizen's heart, he was certain that one formidable woman would pursue him with a blood sword. Setting aside those thoughts, he returned to the task at hand. Nonetheless, this entire BL endeavor has provided me with valuable insights. Could you please clarify what it is? The Shinigamis are experiencing a significant lack of engagement. Aizen paused briefly before closing her mouth. Naruto was correct. Although Shinigami experience time differently than humans, enduring hundreds or thousands of years engaged in the same activities can be exceedingly monotonous. Certainly, there were moments of entertainment here and there, but ultimately, they were merely fleeting and temporary. Are you looking to advance the entertainment industry? Sure thing. The Kachiki family is all about protecting and keeping track of the history of the Soul Society. They must have some really interesting stories to tell. Plus, having support from a solid noble family would definitely be a big help. Naruto waved his hand in the air as he said that. Picture this. So many stories are being written every week. There would be all sorts of them. Love, conflict, intense situations, and the mind. This is going to kick off a whole new era and it's going to bring in a ton of cash. Is money really your only goal? Haha. Can you clarify what you mean? I'm a pretty great, honest, and exemplary citizen. Absolutely, I'm in it for the cash. Honestly, Naruto wasn't really in it for the cash. Sure, he was in it for the cash, but that wasn't really his top priority. The complete history of the Soul Society. How could Naruto resist borrowing some books from their archives? Knowing things gives you an edge. It's definitely knowledge that's off limits, even more than usual. There's more to it than that. He wanted to claim the captain's seat, but it wasn't just about showing off. He was aiming for the Derishikaro. the biggest library in the entire Soul Society, a spot that's only open to the central 46 members and a handful of approved captains. So, the deal with the Kuchiki family was a bit of a gamble, but honestly, it looked like he had a pretty good shot at getting into the Dereshikero. Over those 5 years, he definitely came off as brash and hot-headed, but he still had a good amount of respect for his superior, even if he wasn't the strongest around. No matter how he looked at it, this was exactly the kind of personality that any leader would appreciate in their team members. Strong, but not over the top. Skilled, but not overly so. Smart, but not overly so. So, yeah, the whole thing about him being just 5 years old by Soul Society standards should have raised some eyebrows. But Naruto. He found a way around it by spreading some rumors, thanks to a few women he had casual flings with, definitely some honey traps set up just for him. It's interesting to think that in reality, he was actually a few hundred years old. It's interesting to note that he actually failed the Academy's entry test several times before finally making it. It's interesting how he was so vulnerable around women, almost like he was willing to spill all his secrets. A perfect person made others feel cautious. A person with their share of flaws can really turn people off. It seems like only those who have some talent but also a few flaws that make them relatable are the ones who get appreciated by the higher-ups. Honestly, it's been pretty easy. For 5 years, he played his cards right, revealing bits of his true self, both the good and the bad, just to keep them from being too watchful. When it comes to his Shirkai, only Zaraki Kenpachi and Anohana really understood its true power in this world. Anyway, they ought to send me more honey traps. I have to say, the women in the Soul Society are really impressive. Life in the Soul Society was a bit tricky to pin down. Even though Naruto had only been living here for 5 years, he could already sense that his perception of time was slowly shifting. Maybe it was because he was already accustomed to a different sense of time than others, so the change wasn't tough for him. At the end of the day, time just kept moving on, and each day felt pretty much the same as the last. It got to the point where, after some time, you'd lose track of how many days had gone by. All that philosophical stuff led to one straightforward conclusion: life in the Soul Society was pretty dull. Hey, have you ever thought about what might happen if we had more entertainment options out there? Naruto had no clue, and to be honest, he wasn't really bothered by it either. But since it had to be done, he was ready to give it everything he had. You know, thinking about what the first Shinigami idol groups would be like is pretty fascinating. You know, it's funny how throughout history, there have always been those folks willing to shell out tons of cash for a group of girls who probably don't even know they exist. Right now, he needed to swing by the 13th Division. 13th Division. As Naruto strolled through the 13th district, he couldn't help but acknowledge that, even with his doubts about the captain, everything in the division was running pretty smoothly. He totally got that this was only happening because of the vice-captain of the division, Kaien Shiba. Hey there, good morning, third seat Naruto. Hey, I hope your day was great. You know what they say, speaking of the devil. He turned to face the speaker, offering a slight smile and giving a little wave. Hey there. Kaien wasn't surprised by Naruto's laid-back response, and he definitely wasn't mad about it either. First off, the folks in a division only needed to show respect to the superiors within their own team. Outside of that, even a captain can't really punish someone from another division unless there's a really good reason. Kaien really appreciated people who were straightforward. He had to acknowledge that his confident personality could be a bit of an issue at times. Come on, let's go. The captain is taking a little break right now, so we'll need to wake him up. They nodded and started walking quietly together. They had crossed paths a few times, but honestly, they just didn't click. Their interests were miles apart, and their personalities totally different. They really didn't feel disgust or indifference towards each other, and that was mainly because both of them were the type to mind their own business. As they stepped out of the Siriidii through the west gate, the two of them strolled through the Rekongai. Naruto was really taken aback when he found out about this. The captain didn't come from a big noble house. Instead, he hailed from a pretty small one. They were so small that the only thing that showed they were noble was their title. So, because of that, they could only stay in the Rekongai, but at least it was the first district. As he glanced at Kaien's back, he realized that the Shiba family was a minor noble family too. In the Soul Society, you'll find that most captains and vice-captains come from either the Rekongai or some low-level noble families. Actually, besides Soifan, Byakuya, and Shunsue, the rest of the captains came from pretty humble beginnings. This was something that just couldn't happen in his world. You know, the whole thing with cursed techniques really ties back to bloodlines. Sure, there might be a few outliers here and there, but honestly, they were so rare you could count them on one hand. Sure, Naruto couldn't ignore the chance that some nobles looked down on joining the army. That kind of reasoning just doesn't hold up, does it? If the Kuchiki and Shihoin families could join the army for generations, then really, no family was too good for the Godai 13. Rukongai, 1st District. They were walking, but it didn't take them long to get to where they were going. Can we just hang out here for a bit? Under the shade of a tree, Captain Jushiro Yukitake was seen reading a story, while a group of kids from Rukongai listened intently, their eyes shining with excitement. Everyone knew that Jushiro had a soft spot for kids. Whether it was just his personality or the fact that he had 4 little brothers, it was pretty impressive either way. Even though Naruto wasn't a big fan of the guy, he had to acknowledge the respect he deserved. So, the idea of children in the Soul Society is actually pretty complicated. Well, considering those kids were from the Rukongai, it's pretty likely they were at least a few decades old. Naruto was still trying to wrap his head around this. Luckily, the story wrapped up pretty quickly, and Jushiro invited both of them over to his place. Siriitii, 12th Division. As Naruto chatted with Jushiro in the 12th Division, a guy with a face painted in black and white, looking like a skeleton, was furiously typing away at a bunch of data while wearing a white cloak over his Shinigami uniform. You could spot the number 12 right on the back of his cloak. So, he was Mayuri Kuratsuchi, the current captain of the 12th Division and, believe it or not, an ex-criminal. I can't believe this is happening. No way, how is that even possible? Mayuri was a scientist, you know. Being a scientist, he understood that there really wasn't anything impossible in this world. A silver-haired man was shown on the screen, taking on a bunch of Jillian in a fierce battle. It was really frustrating because every now and then, even while he was in the middle of a fight, the guy would stop and face the cameras that were supposed to be out of sight. It was obvious that he realized someone was watching him. I just don't get his shurikai. He let out a frustrated growl. Even after years of studying, he still hadn't come up with even a hint of a hypothesis. Even with all of Mayuri's explanations, he just felt completely lost. Shinigami couldn't really manage reishi. They could only walk on reishi footholds here on Earth, where the reishi concentration is super low, making it easier for them to pull it towards themselves. If Shinigami can't do it, then their Zanpakuto probably can't either. But this guy. I really want to try some experiments on him. Mayuri slammed his fingers on the keyboard, feeling the frustration bubble up, and let out a curse. He really disliked this feeling of being confused about something. At that moment, he could feel his determination igniting stronger than he ever thought possible. Even now, he's been experimenting on hundreds of Quincy souls. It's safe to say that no one knew Quincy's better than he did. Still, he just couldn't manage to recreate their power. Nemu. Sure. A slender woman with black hair stepped out of the shadows. Her outfit was pretty much like the usual Shinigami uniform, but instead of the big pants, she wore a short skirt that barely hit her knees. She had on a pair of white gloves and a red choker around her neck. She had been quietly standing in the corner, watching her captain and creator, her face showing no emotions at all. She was Mayuri Kuratsuchi, the vice-captain of the 12th Division. You know what really stands out about her? Besides her pretty revealing outfit, it's the fact that, even though she's a Shinigami and a vice-captain, she doesn't have a sword hanging at her side. As Mayuri admired his masterpiece, she moved closer and started to circle around, studying her with a keen gaze. Sometimes he would nod his head, and other times he would shake it. Just as I figured. I thought about how you look when I put you together. Finally, it's going to be useful. Mayuri took a long breath and made his decision. Nemu. I am listening. I want you to seduce Naruto Namikaze. Yes. For the first time in a long time, Nemu's face was neither expressionless or gloomy. She was quite bewildered. After giving Jushiro a bottle of medicine, Naruto asked them to tea. The accommodations in the house were rather simple. It seemed unimaginable that a captain could live in such conditions. The first time he arrived here, he was plainly astonished, but Kaien explained why. It seems that the majority of the captain's income was spent to improve the living conditions of individuals living in Rukongai. Souls with low levels of Ryuryoku did not require food to survive. But the difficulty was that, while most souls could not reach the level required to attend the academy and become Shinigami, they did have some energy, at least enough to develop a need for food. To such souls, their abilities were nothing but a curse. Joshiro attempted to devise several strategies to assist the underprivileged. Of course, regardless of how much he was paid, he was just one captain. He was unable to provide much assistance. But this never deterred him. It was genuinely commendable. Despite the fact that Naruto would never sacrifice himself for a group of strangers. At the same time, it was really funny. The fact that the governing power was not responsible for the population's well-being, but rather army personnel, demonstrated to Naruto how most nobles behaved. People like Soifan and Byakuya were clearly the exceptions to the rule. Those two did not look down on the impoverished, they only looked down on the weak. Looking at the distance, Joshiro began to talk. Today, the number of Shinigami is steadily decreasing. I'm not sure why, but incidences of Shinigami inexplicably disappearing or being murdered while battling variation hollows have been steadily increasing since roughly a century ago. Why does he bring this up? Uzumaki-san, 5 years ago, on your outing on Earth in the Academy, you saw a group of various hollows. What are your thoughts on the topic now that you've seen several forms of hollows? Naruto thought back to the past occurrence. Well, even though I felt they were weak at the time, I can now honestly state they were above average. In terms of pure might, they were quite near to the Jillians. Jillians marked the beginning of Minos development. They were formed by the merging of thousands of hollows. For one hollow to go near to that level. It is as I thought. He sighed and said, I plan to make a proposal to Central 46 soon. Oh. Did you know that on Earth, an increasing number of high-spec individuals are appearing? People who can see and even exorcise Furii, Jibakurii 2, and Tsukirii 3. The same is true for the amount of Fullbringers who can confront hollows, but with difficulty. Furii were a form of spirit with no special tie to the living world, they were simply waiting to slowly fade and join the Soul Society, or to be fortunate enough to encounter a Shinigami, which would hasten the process. Of course, the unlucky ones were turned into hollows or devoured by hollows. Jibakurii and Tsukirii, on the other hand, were ghosts with strong attachments to either a location or a specific person. Because they couldn't move, they made good targets for hollows. Naruto was interested in this topic. He couldn't help but imagine what would happen if humans acquired ninjutsu and cursed techniques. Even if he couldn't reproduce Limitless or any of the other great clans' hidden tactics, he was gradually developing his own style of battle that differed from traditional Kido. Joshiro, oblivious of Naruto's thoughts, proceeded, as such, I wondered, what if we used the help of those humans? However, most humans who can use Ryuryoku are unable to perform proper rituals. Their abilities are too harmful to souls. Joshiro nodded enthusiastically, this is why I was wondering if we could lend our power to humans. We could simply triple or quadruple our numbers. They wouldn't even have to battle hollows. Just giving them the ability to send spirits to the Soul Society would be extremely beneficial. Naruto tilted his head, this is fine, but isn't that against the law? I'm quite sure the punishment was execution. Naruto knew firsthand how much the higher-ups enjoyed issuing death orders. This is why one of the first things he learned was the rules of the Soul Society. However, calling them laws was a stretch. It basically came down to don't screw around or go against us. Otherwise, you'll face imprisonment or execution. That is indeed the case. Joshiro frowned, yet the fighting force in his eyes did not fade. Despite this, I will still make the suggestion. We might start with some examples. A test run with 1 or 2 individuals. I've already decided on a name for the system. Clearing his throat, he proudly said, they will be known as substitute Shinigami, what do you think? Kaien shrugged, a little too direct, but it isn't a bad name. Naruto wanted to comment that it sucked ball, but seeing the happiness on Joshiro's face, he sighed. Your naming sense is so abominably bad it's impressive. How could he speak so vulgarly in front of a captain? Kaien stifled a giggle, while Joshiro looked perplexed before bursting into laughter. You've got me extremely good. Joshiro could take a joke. It was unpleasant to see him cough at times. Naruto even questioned whether the man was born with a celestial constraint, though he questioned whether this structure existed in this planet. After that, the three of them proceeded to joke about until a black-haired woman came next to them with Shuinpa. "Captain. I'm here to report." Naruto recognized her as Kaien's wife and the third seat in the 13th division. "Oh. What is the matter, Miyako?" "My squad reported the activity of an unknown sort of hollow near our zone. We feel it should be a variant type. I've decided to organize a reconnaissance squad to gather additional information about the objective." Both Kaien and Jushiro scowled. "This could be very dangerous." "Don't worry. We shall be cautious not to engage the target, even if we discover it." Kaien clenched his teeth but did not attempt to stop his wife. She had her own sense of pride, and he realized that constantly following her around would weaken her authority. It was then. What would you think if a really good and extremely gorgeous healer joined you?" It had been some time since he last saw a variation. This could be intriguing. 1 wandering spirit, 2 earthbound spirit, 3 possessive spirit. Arthur's note: by saving that woman, I have officially violated the canon of Bleach. You won't believe how much the life or death of a tiny individual like her may influence the plot. For those who forgot or didn't get to that point, Jushiro was the true originator of the replacement Shinigami system. Though that system failed epically. Naruto offered joining the team, and they decided to meet tomorrow night. Because they thought Naruto should be able to wield as much authority as a captain, they decided to seize the opportunity to bring some recruits into the teams to widen their expertise. After all, variations were becoming an issue that needed to be addressed. Normally, divisions did not engage with one another on basic operations. Only during wartime did the whole Godai 13 operate together. In normal times, the only exceptions were healing departments and covert troops when there was an issue with the Soul Society. Meanwhile, if the problem was on Earth, the Kido Corps would emerge and open a Senkaman with the correct coordinates or send a message via Hell Butterflies. Meanwhile, the scientific department would freeze the space in the designated zone or completely establish an alternate location. Naruto became further startled by the Soul Society as time passed. They would display technology that did not exist at the time, followed by backward rules or systems. During his struggle with the Jillians, he was shocked to discover that he was being watched by what appeared to be concealed cameras. Of course, he figured they couldn't portray how gorgeous he was, so he struck some odd stances. What did they call that girl? Nemu, was it? Naruto wasn't simply attracted to her because she was attractive and curvy. He was very interested in her constitution. No matter how he looked at her, he felt like he was looking at a doll. It didn't help that her body appeared faulty and her spirit shattered. Naruto has only seen such a thing a couple times while on an assignment on Earth. An artificial or a modified soul and an artificial body. When Shinigamis traveled to Earth for prolonged missions, they were given a Jigai, or artificial body, and a Jiken, or artificial soul. The distinction between a manufactured and a modified soul was quite minor. Jikens can be compared to primitive AI implanted in a dummy body with predefined commands. They lacked personality and could only act in accordance with the directives provided to them. Meanwhile, modified souls were of a higher level since they had their own thoughts and personalities. It was even conceivable for them to have a human body and live a regular life, including growth, love, and death. In some ways, they were no different from ordinary souls. Because of this, the project was discontinued by order of the Central 46. For ethical considerations. Ethical my ass. Naruto would sooner die once more than accept that those jerks had any ethical values. Most likely, they were scared of the potential of mod souls and opted to protect their asses. Upon murmuring in that manner, he ultimately arrived at his quarter. Over the years, following his advancement in grade, the residence he occupied had undergone significant transformations. Upon entering his residence and observing the expansive yet inviting living room, the house has significantly increased in size. I may require the assistance of a maid. Upon completion, a shadow appeared to leap towards him, as a knife, coated in a purple liquid, swiftly approached his throat. Despite the apparent danger of the situation, a smile appeared on Naruto's face. At the moment I required assistance with housekeeping. Everything occurred rapidly. Before the assailant could fully comprehend the situation, all the shadows in the room elongated and enveloped her. In a moment, all evidence of a potential attack disappeared. Naruto removed his blindfold with a sigh. The abilities demonstrated by those Quincy's are highly valuable. I am quite curious about how they experienced a loss. According to his understanding, the golden age of the Godii 13 occurred during its establishment. All the first-generation captains were individuals with criminal backgrounds who were comparable to Anohana in skill. This was one of the factors contributing to Quincy's defeat in the initial conflict against the Shinigami, despite the numerous advantages they possessed in a world abundant with reishi, such as the Soul Society. The technique he had just employed was referred to as Shadow. A capability possessed by only a limited number of Quincy, even during the conflict 900 years prior. Let us determine the purpose of the inquiry from the representative of the 12th Division. Regardless of her disguise, Naruto, who was indifferent to the outward appearances of those around him, could not possibly mistake her for anyone else. It was unexpected for the 12th Division to attempt to take his life. Indeed. 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 It appears that a certain level of discomfort may be necessary. Offering a subtle smile, the shadows beneath his feet expanded before gradually enveloping him. Had anyone been present with knowledge of Naruto's Shurikai, they would have noted one particular detail with great interest. Within the Soul Society, a Shinigami is required to invoke the name and recite the incantation in order to utilize the power of their Shurikai. There was a singular exception: that individual must have attained the Bankai. Soul Society location undisclosed. Allow me to clarify the situation. In a cavern, Naruto sat opposite a striking black-haired woman who was suspended in the air by chains of reishi. This cavern served as a secure refuge he had established over the years. A wise rabbit consistently maintains 3 burrows. Naruto quickly identified the woman suspended in the air. Nemu Kuratsuchi, vice captain of the 12th Division. The visibility of her panties beneath the minikimono and the peculiar appearance of the chains encircling her breasts bore no intentional significance. Naruto exhibited qualities of a true gentleman. Your intentions were not to harm me. Your captain has instructed you to charm me. However, given your lack of familiarity with this type of situation, you concluded that the most effective approach was to incapacitate me with the poison on that dagger and transport me to my room. Complete the task, and then hold me accountable. Am I correct? Affirmative. Naruto found himself in disbelief. What is going on? He had been prepared to confront the intruder after subjecting her to intense questioning to uncover the identity of the perpetrator. In matters of life and death, Naruto recognized that he did not embody the qualities of a gentleman. Underestimating women was a guaranteed path to failure. Ultimately, in his realm, one of the most formidable shinobi was a female. There were also women like Mayuri, who, after the loss of her family, was able to fully manifest the capabilities of her Kekkei, which contributed to her rise as the Mizukage. In this context, there existed individuals such as Anohana, whose mere display of bloodlust could instill fear in even the most formidable of men. Therefore, the answer is no. Naruto consistently held women in high regard. This explains why he utilized his shadow without hesitation. Ultimately, the deceased do not share their stories. From the perspective of the Soul Society and his demonstrated abilities, he was limited to utilizing only fundamental Quincy skills. Abilities include the absorption of reishi for weapon creation and related applications. They were unaware of his greater capabilities. One of the reasons he took that action was to ensure that the Central 46 did not become wary of him. However, there was an additional and significantly more crucial reason. Utilizing spacetime Kido was prohibited within the Soul Society. As expected, the consequence for the violation was execution. For the first time, Naruto truly grasped the rationale behind the establishment of such a law. He understood, for instance, that his shadow skill could potentially enable him to travel to Hueco Mundo. For instance, he has the capability to bring a substantial force of hollows into the Soul Society if he chooses to do so. Alternatively, he could delve into the deepest level of Mukin and liberate the prisoners. In summary, there were numerous opportunities for him to disrupt the Soul Society through space manipulation. This is the reason it was prohibited. It is certainly arguable that this represented his Zanpakuto skill rather than merely a Kido spell. In theory, he had not violated the law. However, he was quite confident that this would not be of concern to the upper management. Naruto was aware that certain devices existed that could assist in erasing the memories of individuals in this world. However, these devices were effective solely on humans. This indicates that he had only two options. Should I proceed with her termination? His gaze turned icy as he regarded her. He exhibited no significant reservations regarding the act of taking her life. While it would be unfortunate to take the life of such a remarkable woman, it would not affect him in the slightest. However, eliminating her solely due to the possibility of his secret being exposed. How could he descend to such depths? He was not concerned about the possibility of his secret being exposed, he simply preferred to avoid any complications. A smile appeared on his face. What are the implications if they discover this information? I will ultimately choose to depart. He had the ability to access any location. In truth, if he were to be candid, what he truly needed was a valid reason to depart. He had limited opportunities for learning from the Soul Society, ultimately. It would indeed be unfortunate to forfeit the opportunity to maintain friendships and participate in the reading event at the library. You are fortunate. I am feeling quite positive today. You are not intending to harm me, are you? Naruto, poised to activate his shadow and send her away, hesitated. He examined her face once again. He found no solace in the idea of being spared, and while she did exhibit fear when he momentarily unleashed his lethal intent, upon reflection, it appeared that her apprehension did not stem from a genuine fear of death itself. It appears that you are not feeling content. What is the reason for that? Naruto inquired with interest. He had consistently perceived her as a type of robot or android, however, it appeared that he needed to re-evaluate his perspective. I have not succeeded. I believe Mayuri-sama may feel let down. A look of regret appeared on her face. A feeling that surpassed even her previously expressed fear of death. For you, the disappointment of that unpredictable individual is more significant than death itself. She appeared to pause, as though she was struggling to articulate her thoughts. I am uncertain, there is a matter that needs addressing. Upon reflecting on the possibility of disappointing Mayuri-sama, I experienced a sense of sadness. Did he incorporate any form of mind control during her development? Could it be considered a manifestation of Stockholm Syndrome? Based on his understanding, Nemu was not afforded proper treatment by her captain. He was uncertain about the full extent of the situation, but he was fairly confident that it extended beyond mere verbal abuse. Ultimately, her physique is in disarray. He was not referring to matters such as injuries or evidence of physical abuse. It was significantly more severe. An inexplicable matter. Substances, toxins, and various unidentified materials. I am uncertain about how he managed to store them within you. However, you essentially represent a mobile biochemical threat. Nemu hesitated before falling silent. With a sigh, Naruto scratched his head and carefully lowered her down before removing the chain that bound her. I have a strong affinity for lost kittens. Images of Himawari came to his mind as she evoked memories of his daughter. It was challenging to determine which of the two had the least favorable father. Approaching her, he halted mere centimeters from her and looked down at her intently. One of the benefits of having a tall stature is the ability to have a vantage point over others. Please escort me to the 12th Division. I would like to have a brief conversation with your father. Nemu stepped back and inquired with a look of skepticism on her face. Will you be participating in the fight? Engage in combat. Unfortunately, that is not ideal. May we be safeguarded. I assure you that there will be no conflict. Naruto was being truthful. Ultimately, it is difficult to classify a one-sided beatdown as a fight. Siriitii, 12th Division Territory. As Nemu ran alongside Naruto, she found herself observing his side profile. Although she lacked a deep understanding of emotions and had a relatively low emotional intelligence, she was still able to recognize that he was angry on her behalf. Throughout her life, the limited number of individuals she engaged with consistently expressed anger towards her, rather than for her. Ultimately, she was merely an object, a tool designed without a specific function. She could hardly be considered distinctive. The 7th Nemuri. That was her contact number. 6 arrived prior to her. She was unaware of their fate, but it was probable that they were considered unsuccessful and subsequently removed. Certainly, if there were a 7th, there would be nothing to prevent an 8th, a 9th, or even a 100th from occurring. An ineffective, expendable instrument. That was the most precise way she could characterize herself. At the moment Naruto had captured her and employed his space Kido, she recognized that her chances of survival were non-existent. She did not resist, having already concluded that her likelihood of escape was non-existent. Only she experienced a degree of hesitation. Experiencing a life devoid of value and concluding with an unremarkable end. However, she was taken aback. She had been fortunate to avoid the expected outcome. What was the reason for that? She was unable to comprehend. She was unable to comprehend. However, she desired to gain a deeper understanding. It was essential for her to gain clarity. What prompted you to show me mercy? She inquired after they paused the use of Shuanpa for a brief period. Excuse me. He appeared taken aback by her inquiry. Are you still focused on that? I don't understand. Your decision was unreasonable. If I reveal your secret, you will be labeled as a criminal. And it's not as if being a criminal is a huge issue. She finally understood after looking at his side profile and hearing him chuckle and say such things. He was free. Be it in his actions or his thoughts. He was quite different from her. For the first time in her life, Nemu felt her heart race and beat far quicker than it should have. At the same time, she could feel her cheeks becoming warmer. She didn't comprehend the fuzzy and pleasant emotions that were growing inside her. All she knew was that she wanted more of it. When they arrived at the main building, Naruto saw that the majority, if not all, of the people were absent. Aside from a few guards, there were almost no Shinigami. What's happening? Our division has the fewest people among the Godii 13. Also, the majority of them are scientists, therefore they spend their time at the subterranean facility. Then lead the way. A few minutes later, I know I brought you here and instructed you to lead the way, but is this really okay? Naruto scratched his head and inquired with an uneasy face. They had to pass through tens of various checkpoints as soon as they entered the facility. Each has its own security system. It was quite bizarre how much the man they were going to meet appeared to worry about his own safety. At this time, Naruto realized that if he had arrived alone, the infiltration would have been much more difficult. After all, he couldn't simply blow up everything and enter. He could, but it would have been painful. Still, it was somewhat strange. After all, she was meant to be taken. He couldn't understand why she was so cooperative. Is she trying to fool me? Is this a trap? The likelihood of this being the case was rather high. But Naruto simply shrugged. It was a waste of time to worry about things rather than take action. Finally, they approached a massive door that appeared to be made of metal. We have arrived. Man, this is underwhelming. He had anticipated explosions, drama, disclosures, and a variety of other events. But, just like that, he made it to the boss room. What about grinding? What about the armies of mobs that had no function other than to delay for time? He groaned and knocked at the door. Hello, hello. I know you've been watching us from the beginning. Open the door. Pretty please. Nemu's eyes widened at the audacious show. She expected him to attempt to sneak up till the end, so this surprised her. Naruto, Namikaze. You are truly a unique specimen. A man's voice echoed along the white hallway. Man, has anybody told you how strange your voice is? Now, open the door before I blast it. You could try. This door was made using a unique metal that, black flash blood arteries. Mayuri's mocking voice came to a halt as she saw the amazing sight. The door was carefully designed to withstand even Heido in the 1970s without a scratch. But how could the men completely warp the door with a single hit? Naruto also appeared astonished. Oh! This door is remarkably durable. I was quite convinced I could have brought it down in one blow. Black and red lightning encircled his torso, and blue energy veins emerged on his arm. Over the course of 5 years, Anohana did more than just practice Senjutsu. She had committed herself to improving his physical abilities to the greatest extent feasible. The end outcome was this competence. At first, it put so much tension on his body that he thought had burst. Now, he could use it for a lengthy period of time without issue. Well, if one isn't enough, I guess a second one will do. Clenching his hand, he was going to bring it down again when the sound of the door trying to open echoed in its ears. Unfortunately, because to the damage it just experienced, it was unable to fully open. See. If you'd opened the door sooner, we could have avoided all of this unpleasantness. Sigh. What a shame. He used the space to access the boss chamber. Nemu, who was as astonished as Mayuri, attempted to follow, but was stopped by a hand. TCH, TCH, TCH. You stay here. It won't take long, I guarantee you. He smiled at her, lifted his hand, and intertwined his middle and index fingers before muttering, "Curtain." The scene in the room faded instantly as an opaque barrier emerged in front of her. Placing her palm awkwardly on the barrier, she couldn't help but wonder what those two were about to discuss. What she didn't realize was that what was going to happen behind the curtains was the first step toward an event that would shock the Siriidii to its core. Naruto shrugged, turned around, and looked at the laboratory after activating the curtain. That's very badass. It really fits the mad scientist theme. The ambience and equipment in the area appeared to be so cutting-edge that Naruto felt transported to the future. Once again, he had to admire the Shinigami's unusual sense of technology. Naruto, namikaze. How long are you going to ignore me? Mayuri, who stood with his back to a group of enormous screens that had become black, grumbled as he held his sword. He could tell that all of his links to the outside of this chamber had been disconnected. Well, you're really unattractive. I'm afraid I'll have nightmares if I gaze at your face too much. I have a fragile heart, you know. Bastard. However, I suppose you aren't a captain for nothing. Even your acting is exceptional. How potent is the poison you've been flooding this place with? Mayuri's eyes widened, and the fear and hatred on his face faded. He placed his finger on his temple and muttered, "So your eyes allow you to see Reishi and Ryuryoku at the particle level. Very fascinating. Furthermore, you do not appear to be harmed by my poison, despite inhaling enough to kill countless Shinigamis. How intriguing." The shift in demeanor would have caught anyone else off guard, but not Naruto. Each captain exhibited a distinct personality. However, Naruto was certain of one thing. All of them displayed courage. He shook his head, disregarding Mayuri's mumbling, and took a seat on a stool. "Greetings, Mayuri. I would like to present an opportunity for you." Mayuri appeared unfazed by the disrespect evident in Naruto's tone. Although he did not consider himself a warrior, he acknowledged Naruto as an equal. "How may I assist you? Please assist me with this task. Could you please clarify?" Mayuri Kuratsuchi, previously incarcerated in the maggot's nest. The sole inmate assigned to a distinct cell due to being deemed excessively dangerous. The nest of maggots in the second division served, in some respects, as a confinement, yet it also possessed qualities that transcended that notion. The rationale behind this was straightforward. A correctional facility serves as a location for individuals who have committed offenses. However, individuals confined within the maggot's nest were not offenders. They were identified as potential criminals. Individuals whose personalities were assessed as problematic by the Central 46 and could potentially jeopardize the interests of the Siriidii. Naruto Namikaze had been collaborating with the covert unit intermittently, successfully acquiring various insights while honing his seduction techniques with several kunoichis from the secret forces. Discovering the presence of the maggot's nest was unexpected. This prison was profoundly disturbing. Upon discovering the maggot's nest, I had a particular thought. I considered. Ultimately, whether in heaven or the mortal realm, there is no distinction. Management consistently demonstrates a lack of effectiveness. The words were delivered with utter indifference. However, Mayuri, having experienced much in his life, was able to perceive the profound killing intent behind them. It appears that he encountered some conflicts with individuals in prominent positions during his lifetime. Do you consider it to be unjust? Would you like to preserve them? Naruto inserted his little finger into his right ear and chuckled. I do not consider myself an advocate for justice. What is the significance of individuals who are unrelated to me? He is not being dishonest. The more Mayuri observed the men, the more intriguing he became to him. Initially, he was prepared to outright reject the proposal. However, he now wished to take the time to listen and analyze his psychological state. Observe. Within the Siriidii, we have individuals with potential criminal backgrounds incarcerated, while concurrently, we have confirmed criminals serving in the capacity of captains. One of them holds the position of commandant. Isn't it amusing? Naruto chuckled as he expressed that sentiment. Individuals with significant influence can be leveraged, regardless of the level of danger they present. Bingo. There is a significant amount of contradiction. This illustrates the ineffectiveness and inconsistency of the members of the Central 46. Manage individuals who pose a threat yet lack strength. Restrict individuals who pose a threat yet possess significant strength. Ultimately, their eloquent discussions regarding justice and maintaining balance are merely superficial rhetoric designed to mask their own shortcomings. Are you planning to betray the Soul Society? Naruto gestured with his fingers, tch. Firstly, is that so? Are there any hidden cameras or tape recordings involved? Please refrain from underestimating my capabilities. Secondly, who is discussing betrayal? As long as they do not interfere with my responsibilities, I am prepared to fulfill my duties effectively. However, the instant they engage in any questionable behavior, The remainder of the sentence was unnecessary. Will you take drastic action if I decline? No. Your actions portray me in a negative light. I have my methods to ensure that you do not disclose any information. It may result in lasting impairment and significantly alter your cognitive abilities. Mayuri's eyes gleamed with intensity. You employed the technique on Ikaku Madarame 5 years prior. On this occasion, it was Naruto who found himself taken aback. I possess documentation indicating that Madarame remained in the 4th division following his confrontation with you. He experienced a headache and temporary memory loss for approximately 1 week. Could this be made permanent? You possess a commendable level of knowledge. I understand. Presenting his back 6 decades ago, an individual presented the same proposal to me. Kisuke Urahara, correct? Certainly. He requested my assistance and assured me that in the event of any unforeseen circumstances, I would assume responsibility for all that he had established. This is the reason I have departed from the situation with him. Could you share your thoughts on this matter? What assistance can you provide? Naruto stated, what if I informed you that I could assist you in achieving your greatest aspiration? What is my aspiration? Mayuri appeared momentarily taken aback before he erupted into laughter. It appeared that he had encountered an exceptionally amusing joke. Upon coming to a halt, he began to speak, shaking his head in the process. I engaged with you under the impression that you would provide valuable insights, but I find myself rather disappointed. It appears that my initial expectations may have been overly optimistic. At this point, the development of a natural physique. Could you please repeat that? Greetings, it appears that I have captured your interest, haven't I? Mayuri disregarded the sarcasm in Naruto's remarks as his thoughts began to race rapidly. Is he being truthful? Is he being truthful? Should he be truthful, what methods could I employ to utilize him? Should I proceed with the action now? Utilize my Bankai to summon assistance and apprehend him. He continuously analyzed the advantages and disadvantages of the situation from every conceivable angle. Regardless of his perspective, this situation was unfavorable for him. However, I would like to inquire. It felt as though an intense fire was igniting within his chest, similar to an unreachable scratch on the back. Observing him in this manner, Naruto displayed a smirk. Mayuri Kutsuchi was an individual devoid of any ethical principles, whose primary aim was the pursuit of knowledge. This individual was determined to acquire the knowledge, willing to go to any lengths to achieve it. When a Shinigami eliminates a hollow, they effectively purify it, facilitating its entry into the cycle and thereby preserving equilibrium. 1. When a hollow consumes a soul, that soul becomes integrated into its essence or is transformed into another hollow, continuing to uphold the cycle. However, Quincy's exhibit distinct characteristics. When a Quincy eliminates a hollow, that hollow is definitively eradicated. Simultaneously, hollows posed a significant threat to Quincy's, as a Quincy who fell victim to a hollow would face the destruction of their soul, eliminating any possibility of reincarnation. It could be argued that the two races were inherently adversarial. Following the conflict with the Quincy's, the individual conducted extensive experiments on Quincy souls, employing a multitude of methods, each increasingly horrific. Most of the information Naruto possessed regarding Quincy's was derived from Mayuri's research. Those who perceived this man as irrational were profoundly mistaken. Mayuri was not irrational. He was a highly analytical individual who perceived the world and all living beings as subjects for examination, including himself. That was the reason Naruto sought him out. To acquire knowledge of Limitless, he needed to access the Dangai, which was monitored by the 12th Division. To gain a deeper understanding of his Shurikai skills, he required an individual with a comprehensive knowledge of Quincy's. The 12th Division possessed access to a wide array of technologies. Some of them could potentially enable phenomena as extraordinary as space freezing. Having this individual under his control would be highly advantageous. However, I decline. I anticipated your response. Naruto rose to his feet with a smile. Mayuri focused intently, tightening his grip on the sword. He was prepared to demolish the entire building completely before activating his Bankai. Instead of approaching him, Naruto chose to walk away. You will not silence me or compel me. Amusing. How can I hinder the development of my future scientist? I declined. There is no need for concern. I am confident that upon further reflection, you will reconsider your position. With that, he gestured with his right hand, dismantling the barrier he had established. Initially, I had the intention to confront you, but that will have to be postponed for another time. I will be bringing Nemu with me now. Are you implying a threat towards me? Is that a threat? Naruto came to a halt. A single snap was all that was required. As Mayuri began to comprehend the situation, he felt an arm wrap around his shoulder. Mayuri. Dear colleague. I have no intention of resorting to threats. With a light pat on his back, Naruto chuckled, if I intended to eliminate you. There is no information to provide. I am fully committed to proceeding with this action. If your allegiance to the Soul Society is so strong, you are welcome to disclose my position if you choose to do so. However, murmuring in his ears, he continued, we are fully aware that you will not, correct? What would compel you to risk your life for something as insubstantial as loyalty? The sound of Naruto's laughter as he departed from the room was the final thing he perceived. Now alone, he made no effort to confirm whether Nemu remained in the hallway. He recognized the futility of the situation. With clenched fists and bloodshot eyes, Mayuri murmured Naruto's name hoarsely. Naruto Namikaze today was an exceptionally challenging day for him. Simultaneously, the analytical aspect of his mind continued to echo the words spoken by Naruto. The development of an authentic natural physique. It was an objective he was unable to achieve regardless of the efforts made. In his cavern, Naruto found himself laughing as he rolled through the air. Observing him in this manner, while striving to overlook the fact that Naruto was levitating with Reishi, an occurrence that should be deemed impossible in the Soul Society, felt compelled to inquire, what contributes to your happiness? Wiping a tear from the corner of his eye, Naruto ceased his laughter, nothing much. I recently found that portraying the antagonist in a professional setting was quite enjoyable. With a gesture of his hand, he maintained a serious expression and stated, now then, let us discuss an important matter, shall we? I have always been curious about this matter. Nemu instinctively straightened her back. She recognized clearly that she was currently being abducted. She found herself contemplating the possibilities of her future. The serious expression on his face indicated that it was a matter of significant importance. Consequently, when he ultimately expressed himself, could you explain the reasoning behind your choice to wear a skirt that offers minimal coverage during combat? Are you interested in exhibitionism as a preference? Nemu could only gaze in silence. I am currently contemplating whether to introduce hell or not. I may consider rewatching the movie. I composed this note prior to the release of the new Bleach chapter. It appears I have no alternative at this point. Arthur's note that concludes this small arc. Mayuri would not have accepted such a request so quickly. Naruto made it knowing that the odds of Mayuri snitching were slim, and even if he did, Naruto could just escape. Now it's time for some hollow hunting. By the way, this is about power. I feel Mayuri is the weakest captain. He is not a warrior. Even against Ikeda, he only managed to hurt him with Nemu. But a prepared Mayuri is just terrifying. Unfortunately, he simply lacks enough information on Naruto to provide an effective response. 4th Division Major Office. The following morning. And this is what happened. So, not only did you join another squad's assignment without my approval, but you also abducted the 12th Division Vice Captain after she attempted to assault you. When you say it like this, it seems so bad. In the first place, why would she try to assault you? because I am handsome. Uzumaki. How many times must I tell you? You are allowed to cause chaos, but it should not be traced back to you. This way, even if everyone knows who you are, they can't do anything without proof. Ha ha ha. Stop frowning, you're damaging your gorgeous skin. Anohana waved off his compliment. Forget it. Anyway, you're not a child, you deal with your own issues. I have just one question. Are you sure she won't turn you in? Anohana's eyes flared ominously. She had invested too much in her student to allow him be wrecked by a woman. If required, she could murder her so thoroughly that people would believe she had been eaten by a hollow or something like. She was accustomed to altering crime scenes. After all, as a criminal, she would need such powers to avoid being recognized when pursued by bounty hunters. You might say she was an expert at handling dead bodies. However, when she became tired of running away, she would just stop concealing her tracks and murder them all. She found it amusing to watch their shocked expressions. Ignoring his captain's fairly dark and violent thoughts, Naruto merely shrugged, "I'm just keeping her with me because the structure of her body interests me. Even if I release her and she ruins my space method, does it really matter? I'll just leave if necessary." Anohana merely nodded, not surprised by his comments. She was the closest to him and knew almost everything about his Zanpakuto. Naruto placed a high level of faith in her. After all, she did not necessarily share the Soul Society's sense of fairness. Back then, when he asked her why she joined the Soul Society and safeguarded the Earth, her answer was fairly simple: in this universe, only the strong have the ability to destroy or maintain equilibrium. As a result, the best method to deal with powerful individuals is to try to disrupt or defend the equilibrium. But destroying it would only result in the extinction of all potentially powerful individuals emerging in the future, so I simply resolved to safeguard it. Back then, Naruto could only give a thumbs up to this complicated way of thinking that was so similar to hers. That is why Naruto knew. She didn't care if he stayed or betrayed the Soul Society. If he stayed, she would train him to outperform her, and if he left, she would treat him as an adversary and either die or murder him. It was so simple that it felt refreshing. Anyways, standing up, he stretched slightly and moved away. "I have a job to do, I can't afford to be late." Anohana could only shake her head at his casual demeanor. "Take care." Even though she stated so, she was not very concerned. A hollow powerful enough to endanger Naruto could not infiltrate the Soul Society without being detected. Rukongai, 60th Western District. The Rukongai was separated into 4 large zones: west, east, north, and south. Each zone consisted of 80 districts. The district's number increased as it moved farther from the Siriiti and became more unruly. It had gotten to the point where mass murder and other forms of violence were quite prevalent in the 70-80th district. As a result, weak hollows who were able to penetrate the Soul Society secretly may kill a large number of souls before anybody noticed anything amiss. Following behind the third seat in her division, Rukia couldn't help but feel confused as she observed the scenario. After all, she was from the furthest zone of the Rukongai, the 79th district in the southern zone. She, Renji, and a handful of their friends remained there for about 100 years, surviving as best they could. At the end, just the 2 of them survived and chose to enroll at the academy. Stressed. She raised her head, glanced at Miyako's anxious expression, and shook her head. "I am sorry, Miyako in the third seat. This will not happen again." Miyako smiled reassuringly at her and made no additional comments. Even though they were close, this was now an official assignment, and as such, the hierarchy had to be followed. Miyako and Kaien shared the same family name, therefore they addressed her by her given name. Initially, Rukia should not have taken part in this operation. After all, despite having awoken her Shurkai, she lacked experience. Most people didn't understand why, but Miyako understood it was because of the Kochikis. They not only prevented Rukia from engaging in any perilous missions, but they also halted any attempts at advancement. This is why, despite having the talent of a single-digit sitting officer, Rukia did not have an official seat. The same would have happened with this expedition, but when it was revealed that Naruto Namikaze would be joining, the Kochiki family made no fuss. Despite their competition, Byakuya Kochiki appeared to be confident in Naruto Namikaze's abilities. Well, I'll confess that knowing he'd join made me more calm. Naruto's prominence was unparalleled. If the stories about his womanizing and troublemaking weren't true, he'd be the ideal soldier. Aloha. Everyone. What a great day, don't you think? Miyako flinched at the abrupt sound from behind her. She had to resist her inclinations to not simply spin around and cut with her sword. I didn't even feel him. If he had wanted, he could have murdered them all before they realized what was going on. Fortunately, the Soul Society was full of individuals who could murder her with a single snap of their fingers, so she was used to it. She bowed before Naruto and said, "Good morning, third seat Naruto Namikaze. Now that you're here, I can restate the task." Miyako was incredibly courteous despite the fact that they were of same rank. Despite her pleasant demeanor, Naruto Namikaze did not miss the subtle reproach in her comments. "Ha ha ha. I apologize for being late. I was a little, let's suppose you're busy." "I understand. Now, then." Miyako addressed the other members of her team. "This is only a scouting trip. The amount of citizens who have disappeared in this zone is very high. The reason is an unknown form of hollow, thus, we must use caution. We will go in groups of 3 and spread out. If someone encounters the target, prioritize escape. If you are unable to flee, light the flare, battle, and acquire as much information as possible before dispatching them with your Hell Butterfly." Miyako issued the commands in a chilly tone. This was a Soul Society. Death was so prevalent that most people were used to it. Yes. No Shinigami flinched at her statement. Information was valuable. Using the lives of 1 or 2 Shinigami to save 100 more was clearly worthwhile in their eyes. Even if it meant sacrificing themselves. Arthur's note: I really respect Shinigami in general. It's simply unfortunate that most of them are essentially cannon fodder. Siriiti, 5th Division. Captain, the 13th Division finally caught traces of your hollow. I understand. The experiment had been unsatisfactory until now, so I wanted to test how it would do against Shinigami, but there is a variable. Indeed. Sighing, Eisen adjusted his spectacles as he considered the unexpected variable. Naruto Namikaze. He is a really intriguing man. Though his choice to compete with you for the position of captain is throwing a wrench into some of my preparations. Ichimaru Jin wasn't the only one working for Eisen. His second subordinate had already attained the rank of captain. If Jin was also listed as one, that would indicate he had 2 captains beneath him. This would have undoubtedly eased most of his following acts. Should we just eliminate him? Jin offered gently. He had no qualms about eliminating the competitors. After all, he rose to his current position by assassinating individuals in positions of authority. Eisen considered briefly before delivering a small grin. No. He is too much of a high-profile target, and his interactions with many of the other captains are unique. If we murder him, the probe will be pretty extensive. Until recently, hundreds of Shinigami and thousands of people have been sacrificed for the sake of study. Aside from the government's total ineptitude and the potency of his shuriken, the major reason he has escaped capture till now is that he normally avoids attacking high-profile targets. The only time he broke this rule was around 60 years ago, when he plotted against more than 8 high-ranking members of the Soul Society. 4 of them were captains, 1 was the vice-captain of the Kido Corps, and the remaining 3 were all vice-captains of the Godii 13. As if that wasn't enough, he had indirectly brought down 2 other captains and the commander of the Kido Corps as part of the same conspiracy. So, those loyal soldiers were seen as traitors and fugitives, while he was celebrated as a kind and friendly captain who everyone adored. The Godii 13 has always had 13 captains, and in just one night, he managed to create 6 captains, 3 vice-captains, and turn the 2 top leaders of an organization on par with the Godii 13 into wanted fugitives. Haha, this is just so ridiculous that it's actually funny. The Soul Society was pretty wild. An organization filled with persistent issues that just can't seem to be resolved. What's the reason behind it? That phony king. Just the thought of that thing made him feel a surge of anger and disgust. Hey, how's it going with our research on the second Hogyoku? Jin brushed off the pressure that was slowly piling up on him. Even though he had reached Bankai and felt confident he could take down most captains if he caught them off guard, he still couldn't grasp just how powerful Eisen really was. We've been looking around in the human world, but we haven't found anything. We still don't know where Kasukirahara is hanging out. It's the same for those who went through holification. Aizen let out a sigh upon hearing this. Honestly, I'm not surprised. Kasuke is the only person I see as my equal when it comes to smarts. It's already great to have him outside of the Soul Society. With a chuckle, he turned around and started walking toward the secret underground space he had set up for his experiment. As he walked away, Jin called out again, "So, what's happening with the current experiment?" Aizen paused and replied without looking back, "With Naruto Namikaze getting involved, it seems pretty safe to say that Metastasia is a goner. I'm glad I set up a function that will quickly send a piece of his soul off to Hueco Mundo. I'm ready to take the first steps for another one of my plans." Jin's eyes narrowed even more, which seemed like it shouldn't be possible. He totally got what Aizen was hinting at, probably better than anyone else. "Are we ready to kick off the final step of the preparations?" With that, he started walking again. "Absolutely. Even though my Hogyoku isn't fully complete and can't help me achieve my ultimate goal just yet, it's at a level that lets me handle Minos-ranked hollows just fine. I'm excited to kick off the first phase of my biggest project. How about we name it Project Espada?" Arthur's note. I'm pretty sure most of you already know who Aizen's third subordinate is. So, about the Espadas, they were actually created way before Aizen made his official move to defect. Back in the day, it was Neliel who held the number 3 spot instead of Tyr. They didn't specify exactly how long, but it seems like it should be around 20 years before canon. That's when Aizen made white and had it go up against Kaien Shiba. I've got a bit of a rant to share. The Espada are seriously awesome. But I really can't stand their names. Writing is just so exhausting. I had to go through the wiki about 6 to 8 times to make sure I didn't mess it up. Just like Neliel 2 Odelschwank or Sailaporo Grands. Things get even tougher later with the Quincy's. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for watching this amazing video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel for more content. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.